Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting installment of the Roundtable Pro Wrestling Podcast. It's your boy Double B Bad Blood, the franchise player. And look, we're here live today. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk to a guy who's been around the industry for a long time. He's taking time out of his busy schedule to jump in and have a seat here at the roundtable. You know, he's going to pull up a chair, talk about professional wrestling. He uses social media to reach people during this time of this pandemic and this horrible time right now, and he's still teaching people today, being an inspiration to a lot of young individuals. Some of the guys actually work for BCW Worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring to the table Tyson Dux. Welcome, my brother. How are you doing today?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on, by the way. This is kind of a big deal for me to be a part of this illustrious podcast. I'm enjoying the idea of getting to it with you.
Man, hey, well, thank you. Like I said, man, the honor and privilege belongs to me here, brother. Bringing it to you. It's awesome, man. So, what have you been up to lately? What have you been doing during the pandemic?
Well, like anything with the pandemic and when you're locked down and stuff like that, I feel as though a lot of people will either sink or swim in a situation like this. So what we've done and what we started to do, I did with my son who's 18 and started getting into pro wrestling. We just started doing tutorials. So I've always coached. I've always been a guy that wants wrestling to flourish, and I want to bring back a little bit of education in the ways of old school professional wrestling. So me and my kids started it, and then I got other people on board with it. And I have social media guys now and all this stuff working on building tutorials and building a brand and an awareness for pro wrestling of how it used to be. And all I do now is basically once a week we go over a whole set of stuff to teach the new generation some of the old ways that are kind of forgotten or kind of lost along the way. And that's basically what we've been doing for over a year now. Yeah, it's been over a year. Yeah, crazy.
Man, and I tell you, some of the stuff you guys do at the Wrestling Factory, man, you guys are doing some great stuff, like hard work, perseverance, and drive, man. I see that every video you guys put out on YouTube. You're teaching the basics, and from someone who's been involved in professional wrestling for 28 years, it's really refreshing to see the things that I was shown when I started, like a throwback, so to speak, to the way the industry should be, as opposed to the 500 spots in one match. It's a proven fact that fans will forget the 50 Canadian destroyers, the 200 super clotheslines from the top rope, the 5,000 flips. All they're going to remember is the finish.
Yep. Yeah,
and
you're totally right.
That. I see you teach that, and that's awesome.
Well, what it is I put the analogy out there that pro wrestling is like you can have two ways of pro wrestling. You can have the fireworks, or you can have a good novel. So with a good novel, a good story, it takes a little bit more work. It takes a little bit more effort to get through. Whereas you can have a spectacle like fireworks. The thing with fireworks, though, is in 10 minutes of seeing bright lights in the sky, you're going to get bored. Like you can only see so many oohs and ahs and pops so many times for colors. And then once you get over that whole effect of fireworks, then it just becomes mundane. And you can only see that maybe once a year. With a good novel, you can read that over and over again, and you can get lost in it because there's an emotional connection with the story. And that's basically what professional wrestling is. You can either give them fireworks, which is needed in pro wrestling as well. But I am of the belief that if you really want to catch hold of people and hold on to their attention span, you have to give them the novels and less of the fireworks.
Man, that is so prolific, I would tell you, because if you sit back and you think about it, with the fireworks gimmick, fireworks aren't done quick. You're bored in 5 minutes. But look, with a novel, you can read the same book 10 times and find something new every time you read it.
Exactly.
It's just like professional wrestling. You can You get in the ring, and like I tell people all the time, I learn something new every match. And I see that you guys are of the same philosophy, man. Kudos.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Man,
the whole
that's a lot.
point. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to kind of convey that attitude as unfortunately and fortunately internet and social media has made wrestling so mainstream and has made it
Yeah.
so able to that people can just at a click of a button can see anything they want. But then unfortunately with the new generation, everybody's watching the same thing over and over again, and so now their mechanics and their movements and their spots and the way they think and the way they put matches together is all the same. So everything
Man,
from the opening contest to the end contest is the same style and the same
there's
selling
so
and the
much.
same movements to the point where like, and I don't understand how fans who are always disgruntled anyways, but the fans
Hmm.
nowadays don't even who think that they're smart don't notice the fact that it is a repetitive 2.5 hour show of fireworks. They don't get
True.
and that's the greatest part about 70s and 80s 60s 50s wrestling, where guys knew moves and knew how to take like a headlock takeover or body slam and stuff like that, but everybody had their own unique way of movement and their own way of feeding or selling or whatever. Whereas today, everything is very much carbon copy. One kid looks the same as the other kid, and they all like you can tell. And I call them on it all the time because I do reviews for these kids. I'm like, why are you trying to be Ricochet when there's already Ricochet? And then you're not gonna, even if you're really athletic, there's only one Ricochet, and they already have him.
Yep.
Why would you want to be him? Why would you want to be Will Ospreay? Why would you want to be these people when you can stand out and be yourself? And all it does is take a little bit more effort in the thinking man's game. That's it.
It's funny you say that too, because I remember back in the day, TNA were doing these things called gut check. And they would go around to like all the cities around the country, and they'd have like all these indie wrestlers coming in and doing this tryout. Jeff Jarrett would be there, and he'd be grading the guys. And I had a wrestler that worked for my company, and his gimmick was he was a baseball player. He painted his face up like Sting, had a
Mm,
black bat and everything, right? So he goes to the show and he does his whole gimmick, he does the tryout, and they say, "You have a great look, but we already have a guy that carries a bat." Oh, he was so heartbroken, man.
yeah.
And, even like 20 years ago when they were doing this thing, it's the same thing.
Hmm.
If you are a carbon copy of someone, there's nothing. I mean, I hate to be the guy who says it, but I'm an honest guy. There's nothing special about you. So, like you said about the Ricochet and the like Leo Rush and the, Santos Escobar and all these guys, they are them for a reason. Don't copy someone else. Be original. Try to be yourself. When I
Hmm.
first broke in, I was told your gimmick is just an extension of yourself blown up 10 times.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, I mean,
That's the way it should be. That the same philosophy. And you're all the way out west. I'm all the way out east. That's one of the first lessons you learn is like that. Like instead of searching to be an ice cream like salesman or a dentist with a bad attitude, you want to find that inner you. So it's whatever like just like you said, just it's a manifestation of who you are, just amplified by 10. And that's exactly what we were told when we were trying to figure out characters, because like you'll drive yourself crazy. And these kids
mhm.
now, like a lot of these kids that want to start out in wrestling, and they all talk about, oh, I want to have this costume and I want it to be elaborate and stuff like that. And I always tell them like it's not Halloween. It isn't Halloween. It isn't a circus. It used to be performed at a circus, but those days are done. And what you need to do is just learn your fundamentals, and then just eventually, instead of killing yourself trying to find something, just let things happen naturally as they were, because
Things
then
happen organically.
if you wear black trunks and black boots for the first 2 years, you're not going to miss a beat. And then you're going to find who you are. And if you don't find who you are in that 2 years, then maybe it takes 3. And then from there, someone might give you a little suggestion, and then you could run with it. You know what I mean? I'm sure the Undertaker didn't feel as though he was a dead man, but like when they gave him that character, he'd already had tons and tons of work and seasoning, so it made it so much easier for him to be able to become the dead man. And that's I feel as though a lot of kids see the Undertaker, so they think, oh, well, that's where he got his popularity. He was the greatest legend to ever live because he's the Undertaker, and he came up with the dead man thing. I'm like, no, that's
not how it worked.
he stumbled around for a long time, man. He was one of those guys, those indie bands that never really made it for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden here he is. You know, it takes time. Yeah.
And sometimes people don't understand that you luck into it.
Oh, God, yes.
Like I went to Japan for New Japan Pro Wrestling. I lived in the dojo in California, and they had a tryout, and I didn't want to do the tryout. I was like, "There's no way I'm ready for this." Hiroko Inoki was like, "You need to do the tryout." I'm like, "I'm just not ready for it. I don't think I'm ready for it." So, on the second day of the tryout, a guy breaks his ankle, and Masao Tanaka is standing there, and he says, "You get in there." And I'm like, I don't think I'm ready. Get in there. So I got in there, and they give us these mock matches and say 3 minutes, don't talk, just work. So we get in there and we work. And I do this finish on this guy. And they were like, oh, they popped. They're like, do it again. I did it again. And they looked at me and they're writing in their little notebook. And I'm like, oh, great. They're saying I probably suck. Yep. This guy needs to stay here forever.
Right.
So they leave. Tanaka shakes my hand. Nice guy. They leave. 2 weeks later, Hiroko walks into the room and she says, get a passport. You're going to Japan. I say, yeah, right, whatever. She's like, no. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this and you know about the Inokis, they don't joke. So she was like, she says, get a passport. I say, sure. So I go and I get this expedited passport, right? Back then, it was like $45. 7-day turnaround. Got the passport.
That's awesome.
And I'm Canadian. So for me to have to get a dual citizenship to get a passport like that, it was crazy. So I got the passport, right? And I'm like, it's like a month later. And she walks back in there. She throws a ticket on the bed. She goes, you'll leave tomorrow. I'm like, what? Wow. Like, I'm really going. I legit lucked into that booking. That 2.5 weeks in Japan, I lucked into it because I was there and I was ready.
Yep.
So it happens, man. Sometimes you luck into some great things,
You really, you know what? And that's this business is all about timing. Some of the best professional wrestlers in the world you'll never hear of, or they'll never see the light of day, just because of that reason that their timing was off. And that's a sad reality as well. Is there's a lot of guys out there with immense amount of talent and could have done great things and made a lot of money, but it just was never in the cards. Especially like with us being a little bit older of a generation than these younger kids, because younger kids have they have more of it's easier to get a little bit more viral. It's do something absurd and people take notice.
We didn't have it.
No, we did not. No,
it's so funny. I have guys sending me YouTube links of their matches.
Yeah.
I remember when I was trying to get booked, I legit had to make a VHS.
Me too. And like a lot of these kids now don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. What's a VHS?
Yeah, what's that?
Like, you better sit down, son. You better get away from me right now.
Like, yeah, get out of here, kid.
Right? Do you remember? Yeah, because like let's discuss this and let's educate people. Just sitting there with 2 VCRs. One of them, you couldn't see a damn thing you're doing. The other one, you're just trying to get the best kind of clip tape that you can to send away. And the other one was like a 10-minute match if you had a good, solid 10-minute match. And you cut out the entrances because nobody wanted to see your entrance. Nobody gave a shit about that. And they would just Oh man, I remember working tirelessly all day on two VHS players and one TV and stuff like that, and just trying to make it right and making sure like the speed quality was the same in both VHS,
Yep.
VCRs, and just this, you know what I mean? Just an absolute madness amount of effort to send one thing away for possibly a 12 minutes altogether, a little highlight reel for two, and
And
match for
maybe get a
10,
call.
and maybe get a call. But then more than not, I know Tom Pritchard has told me multiple times that he says never send me anything on a Monday, or like have it there for a Monday, because when I come in on a Monday there'll be 20 tapes and I'll just take my arm and I'll push them to the garbage can.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember that. I remember, and I took all these little advice tips that he gave me to make my VHS tape, and then I made sure that it was on a Wednesday, and I called after lunch
Yep.
when he was happy and like business had slowed down, before I called him to see if he reviewed my tape and stuff like that.
Oh
That's
my
all.
God.
That's
I
how I
wish
got.
people-
That's how I got.
I wish people understood that. Like I book a show. I produce a television show every week. Okay. And it's like from that Sunday to Tuesday, don't bother me.
Nope.
I tell the guys in the locker room, they're like, what's the card for next week? Talk to me on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Why Wednesday? Leave me alone for 2 days. This, so when guys call me on Monday, I just look at my phone. Okay. Put it back down.
Yeah.
They call me on Tuesday, look at my phone again. Put it back down. They're like, well, why didn't you get a hold of me? I told you, don't bother me until this day. I want to be in a good mood, have my creative juices flowing when I talk to you. Same thing with the tapes. I'm sure Pritchard looked at that and was like, I get 1,000 of these a month. I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, he told me straight up. He said Monday came around, unless the office, like someone from the office had told him exactly who to watch, he would, whatever was on his desk, there could be 25 tapes, and he just pushed them in the garbage can.
Yep.
They didn't see the light of day. And there were some, like, we're talking late 90s, so we're talking great workers.
Really good workers.
Like John Walters was there. What was Malenko's kid? Oh shoot, I'm so stupid for forgetting his name. Just tremendous talent. Looked a lot like Malenko, worked like Malenko.
Really?
Oh man, Chad Collier.
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, I know Chad actually.
Yes, Reckless Youth, Jimmy B. These are just just a few names back in the day when it was us, shooting for a spot, and I'm sure like half their tapes got tossed away. I remember being on dark matches with like Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson was nowhere to be found yet. Like Mr. Anderson wasn't even a thing. So it was just Ken Anderson and me just trying to get a shot,
Ken Anderson's my boy. Packer fans for life.
Unbelievable. Just like, and it was more of a selective group. Like nowadays it's like, I've been to a few WWE gigs, like in 2007, I think my last one was in the early 2010s, like around there, 2012 maybe, I don't know, but
that's when you were doing little Saturday night main events, and
and it wasn't the same anymore, because they hired a whole bunch of kids that day. No one was really getting paid anymore. It used to be like I used to be there every month, a couple times a month, to do enhancement. Like I made a pretty good living for a little bit, and they used to pay me quite well, and they used to pay for everything. So they paid for expenses, they paid for hotels back then, paid for travel. And then as things started to get tightened up, and I got injured in 2004 with the company, after that I came back in 2007, and they didn't pay as well. And they didn't. I gave them my receipts, and they're like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Well, they're my expenses." I'm like, "Well, that's on you, a-hole. We don't do any of that." I'm like, "Oh well, Well, I guess I've been gone a while because I had no idea. But yeah, they had totally switched it. Totally switched it. It's totally different now. Totally different.
Speaking of totally different, what do you think about the Mark Carrano being replaced by John Laurinaitis?
Oh, you know why? You know what's crazy is I never hear the news. I never hear the news.
It's like big news, man. Dude, well, I'm on the inside. That's why I know.
Well, you know what? That's crazy because I didn't even know Laurinaitis was still around anymore.
He wasn't. Like legitimately, like 3 days ago, a friend of mine who works in the office texted me. He was like, "Hey, man, Carrano is getting demoted, and they're bringing back Laurinaitis."
What?
I say bullshit.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, there it is.
Wow. That's
I'm like, Johnny Ace is back.
Johnny Ace is back. Like, you know what's crazy is like, we're having this conversation. Everybody's going to be like, who the hell are you two talking about? Right? You guys don't know who Johnny Ace is. He's got the worst wrestling boots and gear that ever existed. And he was all right. Like, he was all right in All Japan, but just the worst hair and the worst boots.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out who Johnny Ace is, I want you to Google the Dynamic Dudes.
Stop it.
Okay.
See, I was going to go with the high ground. Look at you. I was going high ground on this.
Dudes with skateboards, dudes with attitudes, my friend.
Yeah. And that's Johnny Ace was an all right dude. I never just a business guy, right? Like yeah, he was just
he was better as a business guy than a wrestler.
Yes, and I found him extremely hard to talk to. They had interest in me at WWE in 2002 to 2004. I never got signed. When I did get hurt, though, I was leaning over a crate because somebody was getting worked on. I think Lance Storm was getting worked on, and I had to wait for the trainer with my blown out knee, which is nice. And then I'm leaning over one of their stage carts, and Johnny Ace slaps me on the shoulder and says, "Kid," in that terribly raspy, "Hey, kid, can't really do anything for you. Can't hire you. I don't know if you'll ever be back. I never." Like, just the worst thing a kid could hear is like, "I don't know if you're ever going to walk again, son. So we can't hire you right now. We were going to hire you today, but today is not your day." And then
apparently,
you know what? Come back and see us if you can still walk, kind of deal. I'm like, the worst day of my life. And then, of course, Johnny Ace is always going to be remembered as the guy that just said, "Kid, I can't give you anything. Make sure if you can walk again, come see us again."
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just.
It's funny. Like I met Johnny about 8, 9, 10 years ago, and I didn't know that he was Road Warrior Animal's brother.
Yes.
Until Animal and I were out with Ken Anderson in Indianapolis, Indiana. And he was like, "Hey, my brother," because we telling the promoter, "Hey, my brother's in town. He wants to come watch the show." And the promoter was like, "Oh, sure, man. I'll get him a VIP, VIP everything." And I look over and I'm like, "Who's your brother?" And he was like, "My name is Joe Laurinaitis, remember?" And I'm like, "Yeah. My brother's John." I'm like, "Johnny Ace? Are you fucking kidding me?"
Seriously. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that goes, you know why that blows my mind. And I think this is why
two different people,
completely
different.
Like one's adopted. Obviously one of them is adopted.
Right.
You have Animal and then you have Johnny Ace. And if anybody on this podcast goes and just takes a second and looks at a picture of like Animal and see Animal's work and then watch Johnny Ace and Johnny Ace's work, then come back to me and tell me, are those guys brothers? Because
the apple fell way far from the tree.
There is no apple. One's an apple and one's an acorn. I don't know how.
Something
totally different. And I'm the same as you. It took me years. I'm like, why do these guys have the same last name? That's a real odd last name. I haven't heard that very often.
It was just funny to me because one is so nice and so like really sincere, and the other one was kind of a prick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the way it goes. And you know what? I was in Newfoundland for a promotion up there in the province of Newfoundland. It's called NEW, and I was on one of the last shows that I think Animal ever did. He was just signing autographs and stuff. Just like, and that's the first time I had seen Animal in like a long time. And he was just so down to earth, and we're just talking wrestling. And I'm an old school cat, and of course he is. So he's talking about these kids doing too much nonsense and all the junk in the ring and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? It's just nice to hear. Like, it's music to my ears, because you don't hear it anymore. You don't hear, because old guys don't talk this way anymore, because most guys feel as though they're going to get canceled, or they're up on bullying charges and stuff like that. But like when we broke in, like I never, like, from the people that trained me, never got one kind word ever in my career.
No.
And to get a kind word means that they really don't care about you anymore. Because if they're yelling at you and if they're picking on you, obviously means they care enough to spend their energy
to make sure
and try
you're ready.
To improve you, right?
Well, you know, in today's society, man, I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy today.
Do it.
In today's society, all it takes is for you to go to fucking high spots, buy yourself a wrestling ring, go to one seminar, and now you're the owner of a wrestling company. Your best friend's the booker. His wife is the lady taking the tickets. His daughter, if she's of age, is the valet. You know, he's the heavyweight champion of his own company, and he's had one seminar.
Yep.
And maybe he's got his income tax, you know, his income tax back. And now he's booking one major guy. Oh man, let me book Davari, or let me book let me book Zack Sabre Jr. on my show, you know.
Yes.
And then he gets these guys to wrestle, and these guys work the guy, and they work the top guy, who happens to be the promoter's brother, who trained for like 2 weeks.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, they're a wrestling company.
Yes.
They didn't have to go through the stuff we had to go through, and it's crazy. I tell them all the time. Look, let's put it this way. I was trained by Mondo Guerrero, Rey Mysterio Sr., and then I went to New Japan Dojo. I learned from a lot of great guys.
Yes.
You, Scott D'Amore, fucking Terry Taylor.
Yeah.
Like, you got trained by some legit dudes.
Legit.
So you knew that when you walked into that school and you got trained by them, that you were going to be a professional wrestler. You weren't going to be a glorified backyarder.
Right. Right.
And in today's society, man, that's what it is. It's a bunch of dudes who they all got together in their mom's backyard and they got themselves a ring from high spots with their income tax money, and now they're professional wrestlers.
Yes.
And to me, when I came up in this business, wrestling is a fraternity. Okay. And I always tell people, real wrestlers know real wrestlers. And the reason I say that is because someone that you know, I know. Someone that I know, you know. Yep. You know what I mean? And, and I was talking to someone about this before, and they were like, yeah, man. And let's say, for instance, I was going to go work in Ontario. I would call you. I'd say, tell me about this promoter that's running this show here, because if I'm going to go there, I want to know, is he legit?
Yes.
Nowadays, they can go on YouTube and they see a show and, oh yeah, he has 25 people in the crowd. I'm going to fly myself there and I'm going to work for $10. You degrade the business by doing that. So in a sense, guys like us and what you're doing by bringing that old school style of wrestling back on your YouTube channel, that's something that needs to be done. And like I said, I commend you for doing that. When I started this podcast, I told myself, no one that comes on this podcast is going to be an untrained guy.
Right.
I'm not going to give them the time of day to promote them on this podcast.
Yes. Well, and you know what? You're totally right. And that's such a sour spot with a lot of kids now, because you can go to any town, any city, and you're right. It's so easy to get a ring. It's so easy to get wrestling gear. It is so easy to do a couple seminars. It's so easy to find a school. Like, everybody has a school now. And like, I know people need to make money, and I'm not against people making money. I'm not against it. But like, when you start to, as I call it, homogenize the business and white milk the business, everything just becomes bland white milk. It's just not good. It's just homogenized. Everything looks the same, sounds the same, feels the same. And like these kids that are coming, like I just don't like it for these kids that get taken advantage of, and they spend all this money and they invest all this money into somebody that's just gives them a structure of tackle, drop down, hip toss, and then how to do a couple of suplexes and how to dive over the top rope on a crash pad. But there's no, and they don't tell them the intricacies of pro wrestling. They don't teach them how to build a real story. They just give them the blueprint of the shine, the cutoff, the heat, the hope, and then the finish, or the hot comeback and then the finish. That's all they give them, the blueprint, and they say, go out there and do your thing. And then all these kids watch these other kids that have been out there and worked with all these other so-called names that have had so-called so many years of experience that really still haven't learned anything. So it's a digression of education of pro wrestling. Because like when I started, there was actual amateur wrestling classes that were mandatory. So they were mandatory where we had to do shoot style wrestling, which was great because I love amateur wrestling anyways. As a kid, I was into combat sports like martial arts, and I loved amateur wrestling. Amateur wrestling is one of my things. And so when you get into it's an easier transition. You learn how to move the body, how to throw a body, how to throw it safely, how to throw it and hold on to it, and to catch a guy at the hips or the head. There's the way to move them. And just body physics and stuff like that. And then that's what's missing, because the idea of real competition and real combat is completely gone with choreographed movie style fight scenes, right?
And that's the thing too.
In a video game.
You think about that. If I worked a match with you, look, I've been in this business a long time. You've been in this business a long time. We have forgotten more shit than these guys will ever learn.
Without a doubt.
If by me saying we've forgotten more shit than these guys will ever learn, there's no way I'm going to remember 50 spots for a match.
No.
Okay.
No.
So if you can't walk and talk, if you can't get in there and work, get out of the business, man.
Yeah. Here's the problem too. Now, this is the problem with the generation just around our generation, is the guys that had no ability and no talent, and that were kind of like sneaking in the back and working for free or working the curtain shot and stuff like that. Those guys now are older, still have no real experience, have no real training or talent. And then they're the guys that have ruined it for these other kids that are starting out.
They're the vets.
Because they are the vets, and they say, let's just go out there and walk and talk. Meanwhile, they've never walked, they've never talked a day in their lives. So then all these kids are like, well, screw those old guys that say we suck because they suck. Well, yeah, because you're working with shitty talent that didn't aspire to anything, didn't do anything or accomplish anything in our industry.
True statement.
And it's very frustrating, because it's a really slippery slope now, and I feel as though it just gets slipperier and slipperier, because they'll just like WWE is just gravitating and hooking and pulling in as much talent as they can to keep them away from AEW.
Yep.
And they're just trying to stranglehold the whole industry. But what happens when that bubble gets too big? It's going to pop, and then there's just going to be a surplus of talent that thinks that they should charge an extreme amount, and that people are going to watch them. And like, it's when the bubble bursts, the journeyman will survive, because we always have. But these other kids, man, it's not good. And speaking of which, this whole you're right, like remembering 50 spots and stuff like that. How are you going to sell when you have to try to remember stuff? Because you can't.
Exactly.
How are you going to learn to be aggressive? How are you actually going to listen to a crowd to know when to come up off that hold, or know when to let that guy go into his spot, if you're not listening to the crowd because you're thinking about what's next?
Yeah.
And
the
that's
thing
the
that
worst.
gets me is that, and it's happened to me, And this is how people get hurt. I'm working this kid, and we're having a great match. Like, it's going down. It's like awesome. The kid's doing all the spots he's supposed to. Like, I'm telling him ahead of time, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna go to the double down. Okay, you need you to fire back up. Fire back up. I'm gonna cut you off. He forgets one spot and tries to go back to it.
Yes.
And I'm like, and I just cut him off. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You can't go back to that.
No.
And he goes back to it again. So I grab a chair. I get disqualified. Like, the referee disqualifies me, and I go back to the back, and I tell the booker, I'm like, hey, man, look, I know that wasn't the finish, but this kid knows 3 spots and continually did the same 3 spots the whole match.
Right.
It's sad when fans are like, he's going to duck the clothesline, he's going to shoot you to the ropes, drop down, he's going to leapfrog, and he's going to drop kick you. When the fans are saying that?
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking sad.
Yeah, it's not, and it just comes from digression, like we're talking. It just comes from everything, like you said. Anybody can buy their own ring now. Anybody can set up in a little storage area. They can set up a school. They can do some stuff online and see how things are. And that's kind of also the point of these tutorials that I started, is because if people are going to do this, at least there is something out there that at least they can actually watch and maybe understand, instead of just getting like, first day of school, let's do some suplexes, you know what I mean? Or let's try a moonsault.
Like, hey, you gotta learn how to roll first.
Well, you gotta learn how to walk. Like,
yeah.
I've never
don't start running at 500 meters when you can't walk a one.
Well, and the thing is too, and this sounds like we're just not being grumpy, but you know what I mean? Like, I like a lot of the kids nowadays, when they hit the ropes, they jog them. They don't. You watch Rick Martel or Ricky Steamboat hit those ropes. It was like, if those ropes weren't strong enough, they were going to break them.
Yep.
Because they hit those like 1,000,000 miles an hour and hit them hard, and would fly off those ropes, and like they would be in the air as soon as their back hit the ropes. And so these, like, nowadays, a lot of them are taught to just kind of jog the ropes. And like, if a man is whipping you off the ropes and you're jogging them, like, you're just taking
for one, you made that guy look really sad. For 2, you made yourself look really sad, because that guy is whipping you to the ropes and he has not got enough force to throw you into it, and your dumb ass is running to the ropes.
Right. So now, and it's a saunter, because I think it's because moves are easier to set up if they think they can slow them down.
Yeah.
But like, moves aren't worth it if you're gonna just like steady pace jog into the ropes. Then your spot ain't worth it. That spot ain't worth it if you're not going at it like an athlete. So that has always been my take when people say that kids, like the generation today, is more athletic than it's ever been. I'm like, no, they've been educated on how to backflip onto their feet. They can backflip to their feet. Doesn't mean they're more of an athlete than a Don Leo Jonathan, or a Lou Thez, or a Rick Martel, or a Ricky Steamboat, or a Macho Man Savage. Like, those guys were athletes. Those guys were
legit shooters,
legit human beings. So, and tough men that have been in actual altercations. So it's what you take away. You know what I mean?
It just makes our business, ladies and gentlemen, what it does is it makes our business look more authentic, more real. This is a combat sports business. And if you can't look at it like that, then we might as well just be doing ballet. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with more from Tyson Dux.
Drive me insane! All these rules are lame, have been taking all the fun out! Drive me insane! All these rules are lame, have been taking all the fun out! Drive me insane! All these
When you want to get your hair cut, you go get your hair cut right. you head down to Big D's Barbershop. Big D's Barbershop, Vancouver, Washington's best and brightest. 1019 Main Street, Vancouver, Washington, where you can go get your hair lined up, cuts, fades, shampoos, conditions, and all the great things that go with supporting a local barbershop in a local business area. You can also reach them online at www.bigdsbarbershop.com. Go get your haircut right.
These are more than just the sounds of a safe place to go after school. These are the sounds of interest being ignited and of mentors making an impact. At Boys and Girls Clubs, we don't do just one thing. We do whatever it takes to meet the needs of every kid who comes through those doors. Because whatever it takes is what it takes to build great futures. Great futures start here.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Great futures do start at the Boys and Girls Club, and you can find that online. You can find them anywhere at www.boysandgirlsclub.org. And we are back with Tyson Dux and your boy, the franchise. And Tyson, let's talk about the Cruiserweight Classic.
Oh, sweet. Yes.
A good friend of mine, TJ Perkins, won that Cruiserweight Classic. But you were in there, man. You were doing the most. And I got to tell you, Zack Sabre Jr. Not one of my favorite people in the world, but
really,
yeah. I mean, I find him very arrogant. I just do.
I think, you know what? I think it's just that UK style. I don't know what you would call it. Just their etiquette or something like that.
Yeah, I wrestled in the UK. I know how it is. It's different.
Yeah, you know what? It's very much a culture thing. I think it's a culture thing. Like I've never had an issue with Zach. I've worked Zach a couple times, and it's always been easy to do, right?
Oh, he's a great wrestler. Don't get me wrong. I think he's
great.
One of the top wrestlers in the world.
Yeah. Yes. Very much so. Very much so. And a guy that has adapted to his physique, his look and stuff like that, which is brilliant. It's like, you know, like the Haystacks Calhoun is huge. So he played the role really well,
exactly.
You know what I mean? And Zach being so thin and so tall and so wiry, he really capitalized on what God had given him as his stature, and he really did run with it.
He's a legit escape artist,
dude. I'm telling you,
legit escape artist.
Yeah, and you know why? It was great. Like I did enjoy my showing. I did enjoy the whole. I did enjoy the Cruiserweight Classic. I enjoyed how they took care of us and how they really wanted to make the 205 something very unique and very special. It's sad to see that it didn't hold up. They didn't really go with the direction which Triple H wanted to. He was like, when we were having meetings and stuff like that, I talked to him for I think it was 40 minutes that he was just rapping about how awesome this was. And they were doing legitimate weigh-ins, and we had to do legit weigh-ins. And there was guys in the back that were chomping at the bit. There's 4 or 5 guys waiting for one of us not to make weight. So if we're over 205,
well, that guy's 207. I'm in.
Exactly. Well, that Fabian Eichner didn't eat for 3 days and barely drank any water. So, because he's so jacked, and Eichner just made it. And I mean, there was another guy from Peru who was in Noah for a hiccup, and he's heavy set kid. And he was right down to just his bare if he could have gotten naked, he would have gotten naked, and he just made 205 on that day. Yeah. So, and they brought him all the way from Peru. So they really did advertise, and they really wanted to make sure that everybody was under that weight limit, and they wanted to make it authentic and legit as humanly possible. And it was great. There was a lot of great talent, and a lot of talent you wouldn't have really known before. You know what I mean? Even the Bollywood boys, or actually from Canada, but they put them
Yeah.
from India.
I know. I
And-
know the Singhs are. They're
Yeah.
all-star wrestling boys.
Right. Yeah. Just young, good kids.
I've worked
great
them several
kids.
times for Michelle Starr. You know.
Oh,
So
sweet. Okay, so yeah, you know the deal.
Yeah.
The deal. Good kids, but like, unheard of in the industry. Really, they had no name value at all. And the same with like Anthony Johnson and a couple of kids out of the Midwest and like the East Side that you never heard of. Got a real good break. They got a great break to actually do some stuff. It was great because they mixed a lot of no names with a few indie names with a few like Tajiri, so big names.
Right.
Really well done. I thought it was really well done.
Well, I mean, there were guys like like Davari, and then there were guys like Noam Dar, and there were guys like I've known TJ since TJ was like 14. So
Yes.
when I saw his name on the list, I was like, man, TJ's going to kill it. That kid is he's like a wrestling. He's the Tony Stark of wrestling. He's fucking Iron Man, dude.
Right.
That kid worked so hard to get where he is, and I tell him all the time, I'm proud of him. He's phenomenal.
Yes.
But I mean, you had a really good. You as a matter of fact, you had a really good match with fucking Zack Sabre Jr.
Thanks.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I remember it was Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, it was me and Zach. Me and Zach had the first opening match, and I kind of overheard everybody planning out their stuff, and I'm like, I'm just, I'm the king of fundamental wrestling. I know the basics more than anybody, so I took a shot and I just stuck with the basics. There was no need to do all the silly stuff. There was no need to do big plunges and big dives because I knew that you're going to see a million of them. I'm like, nope, we're just going to wrestle. We're going to try to wrestle as much as possible, and just give a little bit of up game, like standing game and ground game and stuff like that. So I thought our match had a really, really nice blend, a really nice mix that kind of stood. I think the first round especially, it stood out. Our first round stood out.
I would tell you, I enjoyed it. I
Good.
enjoyed it. I enjoy good work. I guess that's just me. I enjoy good work. I'm that guy that I will watch matches so I can learn. I literally will sit there and I will like watch a match over and over again, and I'll take a little bit of this and that from those matches.
Yes.
And that's what I did during those matches. Like I call my partner. I'm like, dude, you need to watch this damn show right now. Look, did you see that spot you just did? We're going to try that.
Right.
We're going to work that out. We're going to train. We're going to try those spots, and we're going to see if we can incorporate them into what we do.
Yeah. See that. And that's what made it so sweet is there's a lot of guys like we were saying, like there's a guy from France, Tristan Archer was from France. Like guys that like I didn't even know I knew, but like a lot of people would know that pro wrestling was in France and stuff like that. So we had a great roster of dudes, and they had different techniques and different abilities. It was kind of neat. It was kind of neat to watch. Jack Gallagher was a standout in the first round. He was a real standout because he's very much a throwback of like John L. Sullivan
fighter.
You know what I mean? It was nice. It was a nice little homage to that. So it was like everybody kind of had their bullet points. And I know that when I had finished my match and I came back, and we went and we shook Triple H's hand because after the show we were going to go eat, and then that was it. We're going home the next day. Triple H made sure to pull me aside and pull Jack Gallagher aside and just say, dudes, great stuff, like really good stuff, really enjoyed it. So like you knew that you did all right, and I knew that I was going to be back because it's got like, of course you're going to be bummed because you think this is it, and like I just got wiped out in the first round, so that's it. But they had called me even before my flight landed back in Canada. My phone could actually work again. I had a message on my phone saying, okay, we want you to come back. Just give us a call so we can get you loaded up and get you ready to go. And then my, my history of like terrible luck in this business happened again. And then the border agent said, hey, the border guard said, you got to turn this around. you were on TV. We know who you are. We know that you're getting paid. I'm not getting paid. I'm not getting like lying.
That's what sucks, man.
I'm not getting paid, ma'am. I'm just there for a shot. And then I'm like, okay, so I'm going to get by because she's humming and hawing. And she goes, how do people pay for tickets? And I'm like, oh no.
Oh,
and
man.
and then I'm like, I'm not sure, ma'am. I think they just filled the studio. You can check, but I don't know. Sure enough, they saw the ticket prices, and then I was out. That was it. I had to turn around. Like I was supposed to be there that weekend. Adam Pearce had called me and said, Ty, did you make your flight? Because we're waiting on you. I'm like, no, I got turned around at the border. And they're like, well, this is great because you're supposed to work with Kenta. I was supposed to work Kenta. I forget what his name was in WWE, but
it was
what was it? I see. I can't remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was something Japanese though.
Oh man.
Japanese.
We just talked about this.
Hiroshi Atami?
Hideo Itami.
There it is. Yeah, so I was supposed to work Kenta in a strong style match for NXT, and then I was supposed to do the filler matches, the space matches between in the cruiserweights, so tag matches, whatever they wanted, because I was eliminated first, and work some of the eliminated guys, and then I was supposed to coach all week for PC. Busy week for me. Would have been a tremendous week, and it all got thrown out the window because the border lady had said, "No, sir, you cannot cross for this. Go home."
Crazy.
And because I hate. I'm never going to be the guy that's going to be bitter anymore. Like, there's no sense of being bitter. But like, why would they just give me a business visa to work with instead of a legitimate P1 or P2 visa? Why they had to give me just the business visa, which means I'm only down not getting paid for meetings? Because even like WWE at the time was very, very it was very important to them to tell me, please don't tell them that you're working. You're just down here as a business meeting. Don't tell them that you're getting paid. You're just down here for education. I'm like, oh, okay. So no visa, no, in lieu of H3.
Independent
B1
contractor.
In lieu of H3. Yeah. So like, because they didn't want to throw visas out there. They didn't want to give, because there's so many of us. So basically you had to lie to get across the border. And like, we know that from Europe to the States is a lot easier to get in than it is from Canada to US for whatever reason. The
we know
northern country.
Do you know what's funny is like you're mentioning the issues of getting across the border. Well, I would book Canadian wrestlers to come work in Oregon.
Yes.
And they would legitly mail me their wrestling gear.
I would too. I would never do it again.
Like, hey man, can you let me send you a FedEx or a UPS for my gear? And I'm like, for what? Oh, I forgot. You have to have a work visa to come here, Like, I don't have to do that issue. I have dual citizenship. I can go back and forth. I don't have a problem.
See, and that's beautiful because like we over here, Canada doesn't get the rapport, doesn't have the amount of business we do in the States for pro wrestling because everything's so spaced out. All the cities are spaced out. Whereas in the States, you could work you could work from Wednesday right through to Sunday if you weren't lazy. You could actually
You're in Ontario, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have a lot of stuff up there. Danny Duggan runs up there, I believe.
He works in Winnipeg, so Manitoba area. So we have a bunch of independent products here, but not many of them are of any real high quality. So it's not really, you know what I mean? It's not really worth the aggravation of going and doing them. Like there's lots of great stuff in Montreal, FLQ, Quebec City has NSPW, out west has North Pro, like great companies. Winnipeg Pro Wrestling out of Winnipeg. You know what I mean? There's great companies. Ontario just has is very saturated with a lot of different companies, and a lot of them are just kind of like, basically we bought a ring, we're going to play Booker kind of deal.
Exactly.
Right?
And you're in Windsor, right?
No, I'm now in London, so I'm about 2 hours away from Windsor.
Okay, so if you're in London, that means you're closer to Montana. No,
I'm close to Detroit. I'm close
Detroit.
to
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
my closest exit
Let's say
to
because
the
I know in
state.
Detroit and Chicago and
Yeah,
on that way, there's a lot of wrestling.
there's a lot of wrestling, and so like you were saying that I would never ever now. I would always send my gear via FedEx. I would just pay, or I wouldn't pay. I'd tell the promoter, here's the deal. I'm going to ship my stuff over. You can have you'll get a parcel on Thursday. It's going to cost this much. Please hold on my stuff. I'll be over. Otherwise, like if all they have to do is search through your bag for 2 seconds, and then who needs the hassle? I've already been
Yeah.
flagged once because of the WWE. I was flagged for a year. So, and after that, I took my son for his birthday to a SmackDown in Buffalo, and we missed like the first 3 or 4 matches because I was stuck in customs. Just telling my dudes, I'm just taking my son to a show. I'm not a criminal. I've never muled cocaine.
Yeah, right. We're not
I,
smuggling drugs. I just want to wrestle.
I was turned around because I was trying to get a job with WWE, and so is this a reason to warrant just sitting me in customs for hours? You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
Yeah,
but the flag is gone.
I've experienced
Thank God.
that. I've experienced that.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
It's crazy.
Brutal.
Like, man, it's like 8 hours here. It's like a work day.
Yeah. It's I would a lot of kids hop because they have to hop across the border, but I honestly I hope that they do it intelligently and make sure that they cover their asses, because it just takes one border guard that's having a bad day to send your day into a full year of having a bad year.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. And it totally sucks, man.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your TNA experience.
Oh, God. Which one?
The World X Cup.
Okay. So we're going back a wee bit. Okay.
Now I'm going to tell you the reason why I brought this up is because I know you wrestled Shelly and Sabin.
Yes.
And I've wrestled Shelly and Sabin. I literally wrestled them for like a week straight in Japan. Yeah. So I know that those guys can go.
Yeah.
Give me your experience.
I dislike it immensely. Isn't that crazy? I dislike it. I dislike it.
No, I understand why.
I like both gentlemen, but our philosophies are completely on different wavelengths. I enjoy both of them. Like, we trained under Scott. So Scott basically has all three of us, but we all had 3 different mindsets. Especially me and Shelly. Me and Shelly are just like an old married couple. When we get together, when we try to go over a match, it's like butting heads. Like, I walk away and I'm frustrated. I'm like, I don't want to work with him. And then we'll come back and we'll start talking, and he'll do the same. He'll walk away like, Tyson's being so difficult. But I because it's just different philosophy, right? Because
he's Shelly, the one that I had the most problems with.
Oh,
the blowing snot on people was just too much for me, man.
And I can be honest, I'm old enough that it's not even that I dislike them or would disrespect them or anything like that. It's just we have a clash of opinions and styles. Because with Shelly, you need to have the left foot ahead at this time and your right hand ahead at this time, and you got to look up, and then you got to bring your arm up at this time, and it's very, very structured, and it loses all authenticity to me.
Don't forget a spot.
And then Shelly likes to call a million friggin' spots. And then Sabin likes to move and does it's very indie. It's all that trendy
super indie.
Yeah. Yeah, and I enjoy both men. I like I said, I'll have conversations with both men and enjoy conversations with them outside of business, about
having
to
work
business.
Having to work them 4 days.
No,
like we did 6 matches in 4 days.
Yeah,
and it was the same match every night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do it. My little brother was like, dude, I just love this. And I'm like, I fucking hate it.
Yeah, you're the same as me. I Saban one time gave me an insecurity, and like everything on there, those guys would do stuff and then be so light that you wouldn't know was coming. Then all of a sudden, out of the
Smack.
blue, they just crack you. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with you kids.
It's because you forgot a spot.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know where you're coming from, where like you're blasting me 1 minute and then you're so light I can't sell the next thing the next minute. You know what I mean? And so like, it's so frustrating to work those two gents in a tag team fashion. I don't know. Like I worked them. Did I ever work singles? Shelly, I've worked Shelly singles, and that was no treat for me either.
It's no different because now he doesn't worry. He doesn't have to worry about his partner doing anything. It's all on him.
He can just do whatever he wants, right? But great guys, like I said, I like them, and they just have different philosophy. That's as politically as nice politically as I can possibly say it. Like they're good dudes, but I wish never to wrestle them again in my life. How about that? I wish never to wrestle them.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir, man. You're preaching to the choir.
Because the stuff like I've watched some of their stuff with because you know what I mean. Because I still, as a brotherhood, you want to watch and make sure they're okay and that they're having good matches. Because when they got when they got their call back, when they came back to Impact, you want to make sure that they're doing well and stuff like that. So I watch them, but
it's because you're a good guy.
But it's still the same. It's still the same Shells and the same Saban. It's not me. It's not my style. Which is they've made good money and they've done good.
They're still doing it.
So
I mean, I know Shelly's not doing any wrestling right now because of his daytime job. With the whole COVID thing. So
he gets smashed up a lot too. That poor dude. Like he's done a lot he's taken a lot of big risk, and I think that's another thing too. Is he's taken a lot of abuse. You know what I mean?
He's taking a good pounding.
Oh yeah. He's taking a fair amount to prove himself. So
yeah, it happens when you're a small guy in the business. You want to be the one that does all the. I need to go out there and do every move. Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say that Shell's bump card would have been expired years ago, but he just seems to grit it out, bite down, and go. Got to respect him for that.
And when you're working in New Japan, him and New.
It's
crazy.
Here's the deal: he worked with Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly over there, right? Him and Kushida, and listen. I love Kyle O'Reilly as a human being and as a worker, and the same with Bobby Fish. Me and Bobby Fish don't really know each other that well. We've never had a chance to work or whatever, but I respect Bobby's work. So these dudes are on another level of friggin' tough and rugged, right? Especially like Kyle will get you. He'll catch you.
Oh yeah, they're super stiff. I know.
But
I've watched PWG matches with them, and then I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm not working those guys.
Brother, and that's the thing. But I know with Kyle what I'm getting into. I know with a Bobby match what I'm getting into. So it's the same with Rene Dupree. Rene Dupree will smoke you. He'll knock your block off. But I know this going into it, so I'm always prepared and half guarded. And those matches have always turned out great. So because I'm always ready. And that's the thing. Like if Shells wasn't ready for a Fish and O'Reilly match, you know what I mean? It would be a long day. It'd be a long day at the office.
Man.
Long day.
Oh man. So let's do this, man. Before I let you go, let's play this game, brother. I've been waiting to play this game with you all day long, ladies and gentlemen. You know the game, and the game is real simple. The game is called Team With, Feud With, or Fire. Real simple concept, ladies and gentlemen. The game is simple. You can team with anyone in the industry, no matter who it is, alive or dead. You can feud with anyone. No promotions off limits. And you can fire any SOB you want. No excuses needed. unless you want to give me one. So with that being said, team with, feud with, or fire.
Ooh, see that now. This is great. I'm here. I'm here for this game. Team with. I think it would be. I'm going to cheat a bit here. I'm going to say either Arn or Tully.
Ooh.
Just because Arn and Tully, you still can't get the level of awesome that is Arn and Tully. I know that FTR is really, really close, but like they're still years after they've been active are still some of the greatest matches you'll ever watch in online. Like,
did you see Tully Blanchard recently came out of retirement for a 6-man?
Dude,
oh man, he gave me a spike power driver.
See it, but I saw the picture of it, and I was smiling ear to ear.
Tully with the spike power driver, brother, it was awesome. Super marked out for that moment.
I'm telling you right now, Tully is the man. Will always be the man. Who will
always
be
the man. At ringside, it was like, what the hell is the new Four Horsemen,
brother? Feud with is definitely. I'm gonna have to say. Ricky Steamboat because or Rick Martel because both those guys I watch those guys so much. Like
Steamboat with those arm drags, man.
Dude, arm drags, the cell, like he knows. Steamboat was so great at knowing, like you wouldn't even have to prompt him to say come back or tell him to come back. He would just know instantly when to come back. He would know to fire up at the right times where he didn't even need the heel to tell him. He knew his cue.
He was the ultimate babyface.
Unbelievable. Like unbelievably smart and well-timed on everything. I've been watching a lot of their stuff where Ricky worked a little bit in All Japan for NWA against like Harley Race, against Onita, against Ric Flair, all these guys, and just every one of them is just match gold. Just I can watch it over and over.
60-minute matches with no pause.
No pause. And that's all call. That's just those boys getting in there doing it. Finishes is going to be they're going to run in and get you. I'm like, that's unbelievable, and do that for 60 minutes straight, and never repeat anything. Man. Unbelievable. And fire. Now firing, you know what? And this is just because like, and it has nothing to do with really that much of an altercation. And it's not even that I'm bitter, but I'm going to say Rikishi.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I want to say Rikishi. And the only reason why is I'll give you the story as being a young kid. And I think it was an 02 skinny kid doing the dance, being on WWE TV, super excited. Everybody was so inviting and like everybody really took the time to invite me in because everybody thought I was going to be a part of the company, and everybody was so nice. Even Bradshaw was not even a jerk to me, which is uncanny, right?
If you know anything about professional wrestling, Bradshaw is the locker room bully.
He is the locker room bully.
That's what I'm told. Yeah, I've never experienced it, but I'm just saying, if you know, you know. If you don't know, it's okay.
Right. And the thing about Bradshaw was he never bullied me, so I never saw it, but I only heard all the scary stories about Bradshaw just not being a nice human being. But Rikishi was the only guy to treat me like shit. He was like, he's the only guy to really, and it was him. All it was him ribbing me. But I had become accustomed to being comfortable there. And everybody took me in, but as in Samoan culture, they're very territorial. They're very much, you just can't walk in here. So I understand it as I'm older now, but at the time, as a kid,
it was
just a kid, he'd just say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I'm like, I'm here to wrestle. I've been here multiple times. It's like, I've never seen you. I'm like, I'm the stupid kid that dances. I do stupid dances. And like get beat up. This is my role. He's like, you better go get a pass. I'm like, are you serious? And then he swore at me. He's like, you better get a fucking pass or I'm going to kick you out. Like, I'm going to actually get up here and remove you from this dressing room. So then me, completely like flabbergasted because I'm standing beside guys that I'm talking to, like Chavo Guerrero and Chris Benoit, and all these guys know me. And like, of course, they're just like, well, I guess he's the kid like the target today. So we'll just let Rikishi do his thing. And then I went out there and I'm like asking security, I'm like, can I get a pass? And they're like, why? You're part of the show. Everybody knows this. I'm like, if I don't have a pass, Rikishi's not going to leave me alone. He's not going to be a decent human being to me. And they're like, well, we don't have any. So this poor schmuck had to wait and just kind of walk by the dressing room because I couldn't go in. And he knew it. He knew exactly what he was doing. And just bullied me into just staying outside and waiting for, I had to wait for him to get up and go to catering so that I could rush in there, get changed, and stay in my gear all day and get ready for the show. And like, we get there at 12 noon. I have to wait till 7:30 at night before I perform.
Is you're in your gear, tape, and everything the whole fucking time?
Everything on. Everything.
Oh, man. I'm not laughing at you. Yes, I am.
Yes, you should be. You should be. Because it's just...
man.
Like, you couldn't get away with that now. You really couldn't. I don't think in the industry you can get really away with that now.
That's a speaking out movement gimmick right there.
Speaking of movement. But at the time, I just... And see, that's me just being funny because I would never, ever fire that dude because I think in hindsight, super funny. But like when you're just young and naive and stupid and just he's aggressive, you're like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, I'll just, you know what I mean, tuck my tail between my legs and just walk out.
Well,
and just
you were young in the business too, you know, like I tell the guys this story all the time. You know, I try to tell them, hey man, look, when I started in this business, we used to get ribbed really bad.
Yes.
Like the story you just told.
Yes.
I was wrestling in Mexico for AAA, and I didn't speak much Spanish at the time. Mm-hmm. Now I don't speak Spanish, but I sure as fuck understand it. So we're down there, and I'm wrestling in these little tights, and I'm like 15 years old. So I'm not like, I don't wear like a jock strap or anything like that, or dudes will wear a thong. I wear boxers. So Paraguayo and Octagon, they walk up to me. They say, hey kid, take those off. And I say, what? Take the tights off. I look at Oscar, Rey Mysterio Jr. I'm like, what the fuck? He said, take them off. I'm like, oh fuck. So they go, you can't wear boxers under your tights. I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like pulling the tights out there. No. You go in the bathroom and do that. We don't want to see your pee-pee. And I'm like,
my God.
Great. So I take the tights off in the bathroom and I put them over the stall. And I'm like using the bathroom. And I look up and I don't see the tights anymore.
Yeah.
I look down, they're on the ground. So I'm like, oh, maybe I dropped them or something. So I put the tights back on. I keep my no underwear on.
Yeah.
These motherfuckers had literally taken a razor blade and cut the inseam of the crotch. So I'm the first match. This is the very first Triple Mania.
Yeah.
And the Bull Ring and TJ, we're talking 40, 50,000 people. I've never seen so many people before in my life. So they say, hey, you're not in the first match anymore. You're going to go out with the main event guys. I say, what? Yeah, you're going to go out with the main event guys. You're going to go out there and you're going to grab the Mexican flag and you're going to spit on it and all this crazy. You're going to throw it on the ground and you're going to like, because you're going to be at the Rudos. And I'm like, I don't want to spit on a flag, but okay, I'll do what I'm told, you know? Yeah. So I go out there and I get the heat, right? And the match, everyone starts brawling. The Royal Main ring. I'm like, no. Like I'm begging Octagon the heel. Mm-hmm. So Octagon picks me up, kicks me in the stomach, boom, swings me up for a body slam. So you know my legs split wide open. Yep. And as he does that, the tights rip.
Oh yeah.
Everything falls out.
Uh-huh.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking an NC-17 moment right there. Everything falls out. Body slams me and they start giving me the boots. And I look over at my partners and I'm going to crawl over to the corner and attack. They jump off the apron and start fighting. I'm like, ain't that a bitch? They ripped me so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, they used to have a Lucha Libre magazine called Arena Mexico. It was like a little magazine. I get back to LA. That's about a week later. And in LA at this time, this is like late 1990s, early 2000. I get to LA and they have these little newsstands on the corner. And my grandmother finds a magazine that I'm in. And it's the picture of me on the ground with my penis out.
Yeah, there it is.
So
there it is.
I get the whole ribbing thing. Trust me, I do. And it wasn't funny then, but 26 years later, it's funny as fuck now.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like,
it wasn't funny
wants
then.
to see that. But here it
Exactly.
is. Yeah.
Craziness, man.
You
Craziness.
just build it. You just build a tough skin, and it just comes with the industry and how you should be. But you know what I mean? I wouldn't change those things. I wouldn't change it for the world. So I wouldn't fire him, but like for the sake of this game, I would fire him. You know what I mean?
Rikishi getting the big ass boot.
That's right. Well, let me tell you.
Man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're going to do. Before we go, we're going to go ahead and give you some of Tyson's information. You can reach him on Twitter. Boom, right there. I suggest you look him up. You like, click, and subscribe because this man does some great work on YouTube. You can learn a lot from him there. You can also find him on the product that he presents to the public. And there's some good shit, ladies and gentlemen. You can go to hammerlockapparel.com. Get the gear, buy it, buy the shirts, buy the hats, support indie wrestling, support this dude right here. Oh man, you can find us on television. You can find us on Xfinity channel 11 on Mondays, channel 22 on Tuesdays, Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. You can find us on channel 23. You can also find us on every major podcasting network, like this gentleman said earlier. We're talking about Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and now, ladies and gentlemen, you can find us on Pandora. Anywhere you find the opportunity to listen to a podcast, you can like, click, and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, ladies and gentlemen, you can support the channel right here. Go to anchor.fm / the Roundtable Podcast / support. We totally love the fact that you guys are helping us out here. Tyson, thank you very much for joining us here, my man.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Man,
Love
it's always good.
Conversations.
Exactly. I was gonna say, it's always good to talk to someone that knows the business, knows the brands. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the Roundtable Podcast. It's your boy Double B Bad Blood for your boy Tyson right here. Later.